as well. When it comes to fish and grasshoppers, no slaughter is necessary in order to let us eat those creatures. Now, since there is two pipes, there is the esophagus, which is the digestive pipe, and then there is the breathing pipe, which is called the cone. And in order to make an animal kosher, when it comes to animal, the majority of, ideally, that the entire pipe should be cut. However, when it comes after the fact, even a majority, and as I said before, the definition of a majority is only a fraction, more than half of both of them needs to be cut. When it comes to a bird, as long as a majority of one of the pipes were cut, it's also going to be considered kosher. The actual location where the Shechita must take place via the neck, throughout the neck. A person must to check the existence, the shochet, about those pipes before he slaughters. If he is not checking the those signs after he slaughters, the behemoth presumes to be not kosher, because the rule is like this: any animal, while the animal is still alive, the presumption that the animal is restricted until you will know, and you will know, which means you'll have 100% evidence what made the behemoth kosher. So therefore, after the behemoth was slaughtered, you gotta check and make sure that those signs were actually, those two pipes were actually slaughtered properly, and the measurement, how far they slaughtered, is according to the instruction. The item that you are cutting the neck of the neck of the animal theoretically can be done in any material, as long as it is sharp. Further than this, there is no even minimum requirement for the size of the knife, as long as it's not pointy, because at the moment it's just pointy, it's clearly that it was not a cut, it was just a poke. So as long as you cannot view it as a poke any longer, the knife should be okay. No dent can be in the knife, because at the moment that there is a dent in the knife is not kosher any longer. Sometimes there is a dent on one side, there is no dent in the other side. How can a shochet determine if the knife is really sharp and dentless, or the knife is with a dent? So in the Rambam, he gives over here two ways. He can feel it on his finger or feel it on his nail. At the moment that it goes through without any, it goes through smoothly, he knows this is a sharp knife. Let's say on one side, when he goes from back to forth, it is smooth, but on the other side, when he goes front, it is not smooth. It's okay for him to cut it only from the smooth side. Though that theoretically cutting must go back and forth, but in theory, as long as the knife is long enough that can cover two necks or a double neck of the same animal, it will be also kosher, as long as he has done only hoilocho or havoy. Hoilocho is to take it out, and havoah is bring it in. So as far as the timing for a shochet to slaughter the animal, he can do it anytime. We can do it at night, as long as he is able to see, to determine that this is the right place. So further than this, even if a shochet have shechted unknowingly on Shabbos, on Yom Kippurim, the animal gonna be kosher. Further than this, there, even if the shochet have done it deliberately, the first time he has done it, the behemoth will still gonna be kosher. The reason why I say the first time, because we know that a person who is a mechalel Shabbos, a person who is violating, desecrating the Shabbos deliberately, his Shechitah is pasul. So how come the first time it will be kosher? Because logically, in order to define his status as a mechalel Shabbos, the first time is required. But before the first time, he was not a mechalel Shabbos yet. So for that reason, when the person happens to desecrate the Shabbos by slaughtering the animal the first time, so the first time the animal will be kosher, but the second time is not going to be kosher because he's a mumo lechilul Shabbos, and a mumo lechilul Shabbos is shchitoso psulo. There is a story about once upon a time, one of the chassidim of the Alter Rebbe brought a chicken for him to check if it is kosher or not. And the Alter Rebbe says, take a seat, I'll take a look at it. He went to the other room and he waits 10 minutes, 20 minutes, an hour, 2 hours. He felt so terrible. He goes to the Alter Rebbe, he says, forget about it. I'll eat the loss, it's not a big deal, I'll survive, it's not. The Alter Rebbe turns to him, you think that it's the money issue over here. If you would be able to see and to feel how this bird is begging and urged I should find any reason to enable for it to participate in a meal where people will be able to make a blessing and eat it for the right purpose, with the right intention, and the sparks of holiness will be elevated, you would not saying what you have just said. That's the Alter Rebbe. It's an interesting story. The second part, the second chapter of Hilchos Shechita is dealing about the location of where a person is allowed to shecht. You know, today we have different regulation and bylaws, but from a halachic perspective, it's okay to shecht anywhere as long as he is not shechting bo azor. Azor is in the property of Beis Hamikdash. In the property of the temple, you should be slaughtering only kodshim. Kodshim is holy items, whether kodshim kalim, but any chulin is mundane animals, which is for private usage, this is called chulin boazor. If a person went ahead and slaughtered, though that the behemoth is still tohir, but nevertheless no benefit is permitted. A person is forbidden to have any access to this behemoth. Now, how we have said before that the slaughter must be done with a knife over the neck of the animal. But it doesn't matter how he does it, whether the animal is laying, whether the animal is standing. So while the animal is standing, the way to do it is to do it from below, as long as the location of the knife, the sharpness of the knife goes through the neck of the animal, that's fine. That can be done with partnership. Two people together can move the knife underneath or on top of the animal. It is even will be okay for the knife to be still and to be hooked to the wall, and a person will bring the head of the animal underneath the knife. Instead to move the knife over the animal, so the opposite, he will move the neck of the animal underneath the knife. There is even some creative technologies will be acceptable as long as a person has direct control over the action of the device. For example, a person can create a mechanism of a knife that by rolling with a certain wheel, the knife gonna keep moving and slaughtering a few animals together, as long as he is the one that is moving it, it will be fine. Further than this, if there is a mechanism that he is not moving, but via water is pushing a wheel or stone and create a movement of a knife, only the first wave of water that can be linked to his full control, then it will be kosher, but all subsequent gonna be possible. There is a discussion what type of wrong thoughts that will disqualify the Shechita. If the Shochet is having a thought that this slaughter that he is doing in sake of idol worshipping, so then not only the animal gonna be treif, but also no benefits from the animal is allowed. But if, for example, he thinking only foolish things, he's doing it on the sake of the rivers, on the sake of the waters, and so on, so benefits is allowed, but the behemo will be not kosher. Even further, if a person has in mind, today when we don't have a temple, that he is slaughtering the animal in intention like a korban, like an offering, it's a problem. Because if, depends what type of offerings, there is voluntary offerings and there is mandatory offerings. So if a person is, while he's slaughtering the animal today, have in mind that he's slaughtering for voluntarily offerings, for example, shlomim, oilo, type, so it is a problem. It's like, looks like makdish kodshim bachutz, shoichet kodshim bachutz, like he's slaughtering holy offerings outside the property, the territory of the temple. It is a problem. It will be possible. Further than this, even if two partners were partnering in the slaughtery and one of them had the wrong thought, it disqualifies the entire korban. On the other hand, given the fact that the primary contribution of the shochet is a action-based type of contribution, so even if achere shoite vekoten is people who are not really fully there, yeah, they're not mentally developed. If they have slaughtered the animal, but an adult is supervising them, and he made sure that the slaughter have done properly, the Shechita will be kosher. I will conclude with a story of the Tzemach Tzedek. It's the third Lubavitcher Rebbe, that once upon a time he was staying in a city and he was searching for a proper shochet that will be able to take care of the meals while he is there. And he found someone that he liked the way he sharpened his knife, the way he behaved. He appointed him to be the local shochet throughout the time he will stay in the town. He liked his service, and in exchange he offered him, please, whatever you want to ask me, you can ask me. and he's asking him, as a Shochet, I'm familiar with the original text of the Talmud, later the text of the Maimonides, but in the recent generation there is so many more protocol and requirements and bylaws were added in order to keep up with the kashrus standard of our time. Does it mean that previous generations of those giants, they were doing something wrong since they have not adopted those standards of today, which are way higher than the olden days? He says the opposite. The previous generation, they were people with high souls, great neshamis, strong capabilities. They were able to elevate the sparks with their equipment, I mean spiritual equipment that they were gifted by God Almighty, even without those restrictions. Today, we are people with small souls, very, very small capabilities. In order for us to succeed, to do a good job of elevating the sparks and bring them to where they belong, a very, very prolonged set of protocols is to follow was given. And it's interesting, by the way, it's not only, there is a famous saying in Yiddish, Azei v'si Yiddish tzach, Azei goyish tzach. Same way as it is in the Jewish world, even in the non-Jewish world. Look, 50, 60 years ago, in order to purchase a house, you went to the lawyer and all you got is probably 3 pages of a document that today you need to schlep an entire truck just to carry one piece of mail that the lawyer sent you only when you made the offer of the house. Yeah. So, you know, so that's how the world today. Thank you.